2024 was an incredibly exciting year, be it in sports with one of the most entertaining heroes in recent times, the Olympics with a crazy opening and ending ceremony,
or the indie games that went so unexpectedly hard. Music was no different, with this year being one of the most consequential in recent memory. In both the underground and the mainstream, new faces as well as legacy artists made waves by giving us a glimpse into the future, were re-establishing themselves as forces to be reckoned with. It was one hell of a time to be alive, and we were alive. I mean, we were there, to listen to music.
To close this year off, we want to reflect on some of the year's highlights as well as some lowlights, and celebrate our favorite releases which made this year more tolerable. But first, let's take a moment of silence for our victims of the absent fathers of music this year. No, actually, fuck these guys. Not you. For betraying our trust. You're fucking musicians. Drop some goddamn music and stop edging us. Go into the studio right now. And you, Frank, I'm not even mad at this point. I'm just disappointed. This year was big for underground, with Netspend taking over and becoming the new icon for white boys that try to act tough. And more importantly, we got Edward Skeletrix, who proved to be one of the most creative minds in the underground and started the general trend of using AI to promote your music online. Yeah, Kanye, we know where you took the inspo from.
Meanwhile, Chaperone rolls up as the biggest new pop star of the year with nothing more than a great single, an album that came out a year ago, and unbridled, authentic gayness. And rapper Jack Zebra is unironically revolutionizing Chinese music, but I'll need like 4,000 words to explain why, so maybe not today. There's really enough coverage about the Drake and Kendrick beef this year already, but I will just say that the weekend where we woke up to a new diss track every morning was some of the most hyped times we've ever had as hip-hop fans. And the fact that this victory lap is going into the next year with the Super Bowl and the GNX tour is surreal and slightly concerning for Toronto.
Once again, this moment already has tons upon tons of coverage. However, this is most certainly important to mention. After 2 years of trial, Gunna snitching, and all of the other crazy things, Young Thug is finally free, and this trial has been crazy to say the least. Starting from the fact that his lawyer managed to turn Thug into truly humble under God, and ending with Thugger receiving 15 years of probation. But seriously, this is a very special moment for a lot of people, as this means that we can now have more of the new Young Thug. His release is also probably the reason for him blessing his fans this Christmas. Slime Season 1 and 2 are finally out on all platforms. Also, is Keys Lore fucking Saul Goodman? Like, did everybody forget how he held Atlanta in chokehold in 2015? It was just crazy, bro. This one's very interesting, and yes, it starts in 2023, but really, the more important parts are this year. The Vultures rollout is an insane deceit. I can't even express how much he fooled us. I remember during those weeks between the December 15th incident and the release in February, everybody thought that we were about to receive the album of the century or some shit, but we ended up with Vultures. V1 was okay and had some interesting ideas, leading us to falsely think that V2 is gonna be good. However, this Vultures era was definitely interesting and entertaining. At first, we had the Freddie Gibbs and JPEG Mafia beef happen right as the album was released. This is one of the funniest things all year, those Freddie videos, bro. Then, we lost Carnival to TikTok Wrist Party, and now we ended up with Aldi Nitro's husband brain rot memes all over Kanye's side of internet. Like what? Also, Kanye, drop fucking Bully. After 10 long years, Travi Patty finally released days before Rodeo on streaming, and I don't have much to say. However, no more local files with Drugs You Should Try It. Yeah!
As a YouTube music using onlooker, Spotify Rap this year seems to be in shambles. Jenny, you want to show yours?
Go fuck yourself.
Putting aside the questionable ramifications of making your enjoyment into quantifiable and shareable numbers on your fucking soul, it's a bummer that even that is being consumed by corporate greed. As a lot of y'all may know, the reason why this year's Spotify Wrapped was way less elaborate and had weird features like the AI podcast is because they fired people who did the curating and the stats in place of AI. The layoffs are not exclusive to the streaming services. Bandcamp and Pitchfork have also faced multiple layoffs to their staff purely for union busting purposes or for more profit. As somebody who's wanted to become a music journalist for years, it's sad seeing the industry crumble around it for a while. I guess it's just a reminder that capital are never your friends. Keep unionizing and demand to be treated fairly, because like another medium I care deeply about has shown, passion-based industries will get exploited by the worst people on the planet. Stay safe out there and keep loving music.
Best song of all time, straight up. That Lizzo line is just genius.
Before we get into our favorite albums of the year, here are some honorable mentions that didn't make our list. Come on.
I'm at it first, my face on the wall, we start a nigga berserk. Life hard, but I go harder. Life hard, but I go harder. I'm in 2093, when your life back. And you say this is not what debated.
Talking about this year's best albums is something I would like to split into two categories: rap and everything else. Yeah, this is a little weird, but I really cannot do anything else, as for me, rap music is by far the most listened genre. However, this does not mean that my favorite albums of this year are only rap. Despite being the most common genre in my rotation, there's only one rap album in my overall top 3, and it is not number 1. So, starting off from my favorite rap projects, I would like to introduce my number 3, King of the Mischievous South Volume 2 by Denzel Curry. Releasing in July this year, Denzel once again proves that he does not miss. And this is yet another great addition to his catalog, which is as unique as any other Denzel Curry project. On this one, he takes on the path of continuing his 2012 mixtape with the same name, making the project a mixtape rather than an album. Denzel builds an atmosphere of Memphis mixtape from the 90s and thrives in the style, and builds this unique aesthetic throughout the mixtape. The distortion, the interludes, and the raw sounds of the project all contribute to the image that he's trying to set, and while the retro cuts like Ultra Shit most definitely go hard, they are not the only strong points of the mixtape. Denzel also does well in something more modern sounding like Hoodlums or Hit the Floor, or even something more soothing and smooth like Wishlist with Tidal Sign or that one track from the Deluxe. However, this might be an unpopular take, but I did not like the Deluxe that much. Yeah, Still in the Paint and Got Me Geek go hard, however, I feel like they do not belong on the mixtape and only make the vibes that Denzel was trying to build weaker. But overall, another great project from Denzel, especially the original version. Continuing with the topic of best rap albums, we have Cold Visions by Blade taking the number 2 spot. As you know, me and Nate are very autistic about drinking on this channel, and this year, Blade has blessed us with some of the best rage music up to date. I mean, Nate will probably go into more detail than me about this thing, but I just want to say that while being 30 tracks and 1 hour long, this project has surprisingly managed to keep a pace at which you don't fall asleep after 12 tracks. Alone in Yeet. Cold Visions is a super catchy, energetic, and well put together listen which brought back the legendary Evil Blade, which I absolutely love, and he's probably the reason why Working on Dying is like top 3 played for me. Sadly, he has also given us Drainers a reason to believe that Blade might be retiring with songs like Can't End on a Loss and some other questionable lyrics. No, but seriously, how did Fantana give this a 6, bro? It's so versatile, it's not even that bloated, bro!
I've named this one JPEG.
I Lay Down My Life For You is by far the best rap album of this year. Peggy, in the recent years, has cemented himself as a one-of-a-kind creative mind, and on I Lay Down My Life For You, he continues to prove that. This album is not something which breaks your mind with crazy structure, insanely deep lyrics, or anything like that. However, it still does a great job at two things: being filled with a bunch of creative ideas and executing them in a great way. This album is so versatile and creative on every song of it, be the mix of Peggy's rapping with Brazilian funk on Hell Is Dark and Hot, or Peggy's use of AI Future on Either On or the Drugs. The versatility shows Peggy's creative development. He's open to doing bangers like Sin Miedo, scary sounding cuts like Jihad Joe, or even something deeply personal like I Recovered From This, which is the best song by the way. And that is something I very often miss in a rap album, especially when those different ideas are executed so well. Maybe I'm just a Peggy Glazer, but I have bumped this album the whole time ever since it came out, and it has only gone up for me. Although it is only third best overall for me this year. It is definitely a rap album of the year, and seeing this album live might have heavily influenced my love for the album. Shout out Vince and David. This is a strong 9 by the way. Okay, moving on to the non-rap category. Number 3 is something I'm really unsure of, but I feel like this album has deserved a spot. I definitely like Brad and the whole Brad Summer thing it cost, but actually, I don't care. I'm a basic ass bitch. Brad is insanely fun, unique, and online? I don't know how to describe it, but Brad being such an online thing is something I find fascinating about it. The entire album feels so plastic yet so catchy. The tracks differ from something energetic and crazy like Von Dutch to something very addictive yet serious to Charlie herself below the surface level, like Sympathy's a Knife. And the remixes are great too. As a drainer, I love the Rewind and the 360 remixes, with the Rewind one sending me back to 353 era with Blade's performance on it. I don't know, do you feel the same? Comment if you do. do. But besides the Drained remixes, the ones that stand out the most are the Apple remix, which sounds like a more soft and mellow version of the original, and of course, Girl So Confusing, which is arguably one of the best songs of the year. I mean, Lord, that Lord feature! But in all seriousness, the original version of Brad is a great continuation of Charlie's career, and arguably a project that will set the standard for pop music and music in general in the following years. The accessibility of this record is something I feel like people don't mention enough. For me, who doesn't listen to much pop, the record seemed like such a natural and easy listen, and I feel like this album's accessibility is just the side effect of the record's quality. Overall, album number 6 in my top albums this year, but still, a great listen, and I kinda loved it. Okay, moving on to number 2 in both the overall rating and the non-rap rating, I have the Magdalena Bay album, Imaginal Disc. Mag Bay's new album is something that I really haven't experienced in music in a long while. On the first listen, I was completely blown away and disconcerted by this thing, but my initial reaction to the album was, wow, and all. Upon the first listen, it took such unexpected turns and gave base to such an emotional experience that I could not even articulate the thoughts on it. I just thought it's beautiful. However, now I understand what it is. The unexplainable feeling was how depictive and image-provoking the album is. The music is weirdly cloudy, yet so solid that the image of each song, with no exception, just pops in your head. This feeling is something I don't think I've ever experienced with any other record, and that is the reason why I think this sonically psychedelic and weird experience is so memorable and surprisingly moving. And while talking about the song's emotional aspect is important, it is crucial to mention that the music just straight up slaps. Songs like Image turn out to be so addicting and catchy that you want more of them, and almost every song is like that. They all sound so grand, which is both the strong and the weak point of the album. The songs make you so overwhelmed that you need to take some time off to process what have you just heard, and the catchy feel caused by the vocal performance mixed with the chaotic instrumentals all end up creating such strong imagery in your head, making Imaginal Disc a one-of-a-kind emotional roller coaster, which unveils the new layers of itself every time you listen to it. I love it so much, and you guys should listen to it right now if you haven't. Like, you're missing out, I'm telling you. And finally, my favorite album this year is none other than Jordy Grief's masterpiece, The New Sound. For me, the album that deserves a 10 is the one that I remember for a long time. It is something I feel connected to rather than necessarily fleshed out to perfection. It is something I enjoy while listening. The example of such album is used by Kanye West and now The New Sound. The New Sound takes you on a journey following the story of a very strange man, creating an absurd and even surreal image in your head with the lyrics and combinations of sounds. Griep takes on a role of a completely different weird characters in his songs. For example, on Through a War, he is a dictator who sacrifices everything for a woman he loves, and on Holy Holy, he portrays a man who thinks he's a huge figure and a dream of every woman, who in reality just tries to build an image of being such in other people's minds. The weird lyrics are accompanied by some of the most interesting instrumentals I've heard in a while. It's fun, it's sad, it's jazzy, it's rough. Through an hour of listening, the record takes on completely different sounds, styles, and paces without becoming messy and losing its form as a project. The album's versatility and the ability to be everything all at once reminds me of one of my favorite movies of all time, Forrest Gump, a movie about the life of a neurodivergent man who, through a series of circumstances and hard work, becomes a professional athlete, successful entrepreneur, and many more, while staying himself. Being absurd and all-encompassing is what I think unites the two pieces of art. And speaking of absurd, this album is filled with weird but memorable features, be it the lyrics about a guy who escapes his wife on a new motorbike, sung by Black Midi's Seth Evans, or a title track which is entirely instrumental and pays homage to fucking Mario Kart. This sonically all-encompassing and versatile mixture of an album is something that has managed to grow to be not only my favorite album of this year, but one of my favorite albums of all time. For me, this is a strong 10, and an album I think everyone has to listen to. Thank you, Jordy Griep.
I really tried to cut down my list to a top 5, but too many incredible albums came out this year for me to ignore. Let's hope this doesn't take too long. Perhaps the most admirable thing about electronic producer Porter Robinson is how he is so unabashedly himself. Not in a way where he is overflowing with confidence and charisma. No, precisely the opposite. He is incredibly honest about his emotional shortcomings and anxieties. The depth of his music and his approach to these nuanced topics may not be the most well-handled or creative, but his authenticity to his emotions always manages to shine through enough to make me say, "Go, white boy, go!" And if there's one thing I like more than sensitive white boys, it's 2000s pop punk, which makes Smile basically the greatest album ever made. Blending his electronic roots with rock instrumentation and much more prominent vocals, Porter delivers some of the most resonant and cathartic songs of the year. Cheerleader, Mona Lisa, Is There Really No Happiness all go extremely hard. There's kind of a concept throughout the album about fame and the effects of fandom, but really, like every Porter album, Smile is just kind of a reflection of where he is at in his life. Or to put it less charitably, I don't think he sticks to the concept very well. The production is all over the place, and he just keeps throwing weird fucking interludes and random decisions that kind of mean something but don't really, like that one part in Kitsune Mason Freestyle about replacing his teeth, or having a Lil Wayne interview where he talks about lean spliced between the saddest song on the record, Year of the Cup. Depending on how much you relate to or like the artistic persona of Porter Robinson, a lot of these choices would probably seem stupid and faux poetic. But like, Musician on Nurture is one of my favorite songs of all time, so I was mostly on board with everything that he had in store and had a very fun time listening through the whole album. I don't have much more to say about this one, but I really want to see him on tour next year because Unfold with real instruments sounds heavenly. Before my brain even registered it, I've already spent a lot of serene afternoons this year lazing around with Clairo's new project in the background. Simply put, it's the most pleasant music I've heard all year, and the fact that there's 6 albums above this one makes me fear for my sanity a bit. It sits right beside albums like Portishead's Dummy for me, where every song hits pretty much the same mood, but nails that mood so much that I love the whole thing. Well, besides a few songs which are a bit worse. Her hushed vocals complement the 70s jazz production perfectly and strikes me as both really goddamn passionate but also subdued and smooth. The lyrics complement this feeling. Instead of moments of fiery love, Clairo writes about the careful, delicate moments in between, when you're just getting a bit more familiar with a person to drop your guard for the first time and feel unrestrained in your desire for them and your desire to be wanted by them. But the thing about these moments is that they eventually pass, and the album dedicates just as much time to the impermanence of a person she'd given her love to as that love itself. Charm is just the whole package, such a beautiful, sensual meditation on love and everything that entails. It's also a very feminine album. As a YouTube comment put it perfectly, bro got me twirling my hair and shit. This one's also feminine but gay and nerdy, which means I like it more. Hazel M is a YouTuber covering obscure anime and other otaku memorabilia who also makes music under the name Smiling Broadly. And like, come on, it's unfair, you don't get to be this good at both. The music falls somewhere between Vocaloid, J-rock, video game music, and noise pop. But like her very stream of consciousness videos, all of these descriptors really melt away when you put on one of her songs. It brings out a very childlike joy in me. It takes me back to when all I listened to was anime openings and video game soundtracks. It captures J-pop and J-rock's ability to evoke the most powerful and hopeful feelings of youth and nostalgia, just now imbued with all kinds of other wonderful lo-fi, noisy internet elements. Most importantly, goddamn Vocaloid. Despite being a big weeb, never in my life have I ever thought I would enjoy Vocaloid, until the wistful and sweet melodies on this full-length debut knocked me out cold. The synthetic vocals feel so at home in this album's super online soundscape and honestly gives it another layer of otherworldly allure. Speaking of the full length, Jesus Christ, it is such an undertaking and not in a bad way at all. She says the album was made in the span of 6 years and it sure sounds like it. Every song is like 7 sections on their own, which really rewards the repeated listens, as I picked up on and fell in love with different segments each time. For example, right now I am hyperfixated on this little vocal melody in Fake Blood Recipe. It's so good. The lyrics being indecipherable is usually not a plus for me, but for this album I definitely prefer it that way, so it can remain a mysterious little thing I can keep cracking at. The noisy delight of Smiling Broadly really grabbed me by surprise and gave me a hearty dose of optimism, and I couldn't appreciate it enough. Now go watch her Aiken video, please. I measure an album's quality by how many outward gasps and mean mugs it gets out of me, and I was doing that every 30 seconds with this new Kendrick. What's scarier is that GNX is the least conceptual work we've gotten from him in a decade, and it still manages to be one of the best albums of the year. Or maybe it is precisely because this record is, by all means, just a victory lap around Drake's grave and more material for the Super Bowl, that we're able to see Kendrick at his most unfiltered, his purest strengths exemplified. His energy and flows are amazing, his collaboration spirit and dedication to his community makes him lift up smaller LA artists, and even though the lyrics on this are not T-Pap level, Kendrick reveals his most underrated talent, which is just that he's really fucking funny.
Tell him Kendrick did it like wine.
Even with that said, his slowest effort album is still the deepest for most hip-hop artists. Songs like Reincarnated and Hard Part 6 are those classic storytelling tracks I love from him. His mellower R&B songs have never sounded better, and his West Coast dance tracks are worthy reinventions of the classics from the 90s. I love this thing, everybody loves this thing, and I'll be running this shit back until he drops something even better. West Coast stand up! I probably shouldn't say this. But if we're talking about albums that are pretty much just compilations of tracks, I can't lie to myself and say that Quedeca's Scrapyard isn't more interesting than GNX to me. This is not an original observation, but Quedeca's really pushing the genre-bending internet music scene forward with its textured, otherworldly production that just seems to get better and better. Scrapyard's set of Lucy sees him evolving even further than 2021's I Didn't Mean to Haunt You, which in retrospect still felt like it took a lot from emo rap, folk, and indie music without much innovation. Now I don't fucking know what Quedeca's genre is anymore, and it's all the better for it. In an age where music needs to grab you by the first second and people do idiotic shit like skip across songs you're hearing for the first time, Quedeca's music demands you to sit down and wait for the build-ups to slowly hit you deep in the heart. And when they do, it's some of the most rewarding experiences I've had with art all year. In a lot of ways, Quedeca is the good ending for all of us internet kids. Going from playing video games and making diss tracks to now putting out incredible art that expresses his reality behind a gorgeous, unique, but undoubtedly 2024 backdrop. We can see him write a song about his discomfort and anxiety about intimacy, or his desire to be more emotionally expressive as a man, and then see him a month later joking about circumcisions on Hive Mind.
Hey, dude, I was getting all cut up.
It's disorienting, surreal, and it's the reality we're living in. I kind of love it. If Quedeca's on a generational run, then Parano's on a fucking multi-dimensional run, I'm telling you. I am honestly at a loss for words with the music of this anonymous South Korean artist. Think of the nostalgic feeling I get from Smiling Broadly's blend of noisy J-rock, and then crank it up until the notch comes off. Sky 100 is an incredibly lo-fi and abrasive album that in some strange way feels like the warmest, most familiar embrace. Any one word can't really describe how it hits me. Nostalgia, hope, despair, because the wall of sound just overwhelms me until I'm suddenly in tears, wondering how anybody makes something this beautiful. Compared to Quedeca, who already had an established audience before he became the quirked up indie white boy darling, the rise of Parano feels more like an actual rise. His albums after the breakout to see the next part of the dream in 2021 have all been about the ramifications and feelings of making it. After the Magic in 2023 is a blissful and gorgeous album about finding new friends and opportunities, and Sky 100 in turn is about settling in his new life and accepting the things we lose from moving on from our past. The people who seem to always be here together are leaving, and the feelings I felt when I made my 2021 began to disappear. I didn't want to see myself getting ugly in each memory, and I finally understood the real fear of nostalgia based on absence. After a comparatively much cleaner and softer album in 2023, his return to a much noisier sound akin to his breakout feels so poetic with this in mind. He's literally trying to recapture a sound that he's moved on from, and even if he tries, it's just not the same. He now has a much broader instrumental palette, his vocals have improved spades, and the songs are much more ambitious than what he could make on a laptop over the course of 2 years. I don't need to understand the lyrics to know what it means to cut in cheers from the audience while his anxious, noisy odyssey breaks down towards the end of Lights Off Repentance. I get it. People will move in and out of your life. Nothing will be the same. And it's scary. And it's beautiful. The sky is watching hundreds of me, and no one has answered in front of me what makes the difference between them and me. What will happen to those who are left behind? If the end of magic is something that everyone experiences, is there any meaning in falling? 100 skies have shone brighter than me, and I think I've grown too preciously to accept the truth and disappearance. Okay, now let's talk about Blade. Alright, I've babbled on about this fucking guy for the better part of 3 months already, so I'm just gonna cut to the chase. Cold Visions is Working on Dying plus Ice Dancer in both form and spirit. The connection to Working on Dying is very obvious. The production is once again handled mostly by Filthy, and Blade calls the album Working on Dying 2 multiple times. I would even say the album's focus on the newest Rage sound is similar to how the first Working on Dying pioneered and refined Tread, which is a subgenre that is it even a thing now? But instead of Working on Dying's concise tracklist, Cold Visions goes in the complete opposite direction and revels in its abundance, much like one of Blade's most popular releases. I had a harder time getting into Ice Dancer than some of the other Blade albums, because it really is just the same type of songs with similar flows and rip squad production for almost 20 tracks. But that's really the point. It's an album that wants the listener to drown in the same vibe for its entire runtime, and you either get it or don't get it. Cold Visions, self-released just like Ice Dancer, takes on that mixtape's iSymmetry and continues the spirit of Blade albums being excessively and uncompromisingly Blade. I don't know for sure, obviously, but I even feel like the two projects come from similar headspaces. Ice Dancer was made on a whim after his second full-length Red Light was hit by waves of mainstream criticism to the point that he contemplated quitting. Cold Vision sees him, as we've later learned, suffering under the machinations of the music industry and contemplating his place in the scene again after doing this for a decade. It's in a lot of ways a culmination of his career, while also being very specific in its inspirations. Oh, and about the actual music, he's the GOAT. That's it. He's just the GOAT. What else do you want me to say? Phil Elverum is one of my favorite artists of all time. And for a long time, it was for his ability to craft unbelievable soundscapes that could be haunting, organic, or just incredibly pretty. And then, I heard A Crow Looked at Me, an album about his wife's death, and I was just floored with his abilities as a storyteller and this existential meditation on the point of art in the face of something so despairingly real. And 2024's Night Palace is his attempt to marry those two concepts in his art, after finally finding his footing again. As a return after 7 years of silence should be, the album is vast and covers things from colonialism to the decay of land to meeting new parents at his kids' daycare. But really, what can't leave my mind is the final lines on the title track. I'm in love with the last of the light, however long I have in life. And so what if no one ever finds this notebook? And that's it, really. You know, it's an album about finding beauty in the time we have left, all that beautiful pain and injustice and love, and expressing it. Elverum is, in my opinion, a visionary, a genius, whatever, blah 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 blah, but above all, he's an artist. And this record is him falling back in love with art again and everything that inspires him. And there's nothing else I would ever ask for. This has been Bliss, and music is good.